I can't tell you how excited I was to finally play some battles where weapon strength actually worked properly. So that's why Arrow and myself jumped to Nuts and Bolts beta, and I unleashed the Chaos Waste Crackdown with my boy Diedrich Kastner and a chosen Halberd Corps with a sprinkling of Nurgle for good measure. Arrow, on the other hand, is training for the faction war on Sunday, and he's trying to flex with Bordello. And if you know anything about Bretonnia, you know they'll be relying on the might of questing knights to see them through these dark days. Companions of Connell especially, the best single cav unit in Mortal Empires, with Gotrek making a cameo appearance as well. So, if you're playing against Bretonnia, you need a squad that can reliably take on Hippos and Uber tier heavy cav. Archaon and his Shaggoth buddy can handle that all day long, especially when he unleashes Uzul, the Slayer of Kings. And it was a bit of a buzzkill when it said Archaon was hitting for 1,000 damage, but in reality, he's slapping homies with a wet noodle at 450. So thankfully, won't have to worry about that here. Chosen Halberd Corps, because they can crush pretty much anything on the Bretonian roster. 2 Marauder Horsemasters scooting and shooting, and a Kiss of Contagion on your cheek. Generous gifts to you enhance your physique. Nurgle's very own Forsaken, the Demon Spew, with their Swarm of Flies and Poison Contact effect, next to Chosen Halberds, which are a super good unit. 120 armor and 55 melee defense, with 26 bonus first large, means peasants will have a very hard time even scratching them. On the flip side, for the forces of Bordello, Gotrek is in the vanguard without his buddy Felix Jaeger. He does have his heal, but that's all he has to keep him cheap, and of course, Alberic de Generic and the Trident of Manon flying overhead on a Hippogriff. But one thing I really wanted to try out this battle was to overcast Fireball on Gotrek and see how much damage it actually does. He has no armor, but he does have 25% magic resist, and he's a big threat, so I want him dead. And cool guys don't look at explosions. They definitely don't care when a bunch of peasants get blown up behind them. Look at that value. Killed 20 men-at-arms, totally intentional too, and got some good damage on Gotrek. So Alberic has his Braid of Bordello, means he'll be giving questing knights bonus first large, which is scary in and of itself. Men-at-arms with gold chevrons all across the battlefield, a front line of those. They have 73 leadership, which is pretty insane, and questing knights in the back. They're just tin can openers, dude. They're brutal. They're great versus cav. They're great versus infantry. They can cycle charge all day long. And the companions are just terrifying. There's no other way to put it. Physical resistance, crazy bonus versus large, ridiculous stat line. Be afraid when you see them on the field. They're going to be a top priority for me for sure. So yeah, he has 3 questing knights, including the companions. He does have the Beast Slayers of Bastogne and a Beast Caster with Transformation of Kadon and Flock of Doom. And those are the builds. And this is a very clear-cut anti-chaos build from Aerocrastic here, which is how Bretonnia needs to play it if they want a chance to win in this matchup. They need a lot of AP, they need stuff that can take down the single entities, and they need those companions in the back. Fireball coming in from Diedrich Kastner, going towards Gotrek again. Ha! You think I'm not versed in the arcane? And then he miscasts twice in a row like an idiot. Look at that, he's already missing a bunch of HP now, Archaon is, because of those 2 miscasts in a row. But Gotrek is feeling a little bit worse after 2 overcast fireballs, so I'd say overall that's worth it. And Gotrek has less HP to work with anyway, so that'll be fine for me. Shaggoth and Archaon can definitely deal with him if we can get him isolated, but yeah, 25% magic resist is definitely helping him out somewhat in the opening stages. So there's a bit of give and take here, thinking about running into melee, realizing I don't want to overextend with my Marauder front line, and those questing knights are going to be thinking about charging right up the center to destroy my Marauders as I back up some good shots from Arrow into the rear of the Marauders, and they're taking a ton of damage because they're not getting their missile block chance. So I have to go in. There's nothing for it. I just got to get into melee. But Arrow is denying it for now, and it's pretty smart. I'm trying to get a little bit more time for the Peasant Bowman to shoot in and demolish my front line. Shaggoth is going to get right in there, and a couple swings from that axe should cause a tear route pretty much immediately. 73 leadership is great for peasants, even when they're getting their heads cut off, but that'll only last for so long when you got a terrifying monster on your flank. Not really going to want to stick around, but these Marauders are going to get completely bowled over by Aerocrastic's aggression early. The Questing Knight charges will be brutal, no question about it. Archaon and the Shaggoth just have to position themselves appropriately to counteract. And what I wanted to do here is basically cause tear routes on the front line and then worry about the cav. But as I shifted over to the right flank, that's where Alberic and the Questing Knights are going to move in on the left and start causing havoc over there. So while I am going to be able to tear out the infantry, the Questing Knights are having a bit too much free reign to do what they want to do in the center. So we need to get the Shaggoth back We need to get Archaon back, keep them together, because if they get isolated, it's very easy for either one to get picked off. Nice charge up the center into the Demon Spew Forsaken. That'll be a Flaming Sword of Ruin to help counteract and give a little bit more damage. Mostly dodge the title call there from Albrecht and his Trident. Did about 600 damage, and the Horsemaster is sitting in the back waiting to fire in. They're going to be on Overwatch, ready to shoot into Albrecht if he decides to land and try to goon up on Archaon and the Shaggoth. But Gotrek just overextended completely. My right flank is in disarray. Marauders are getting run over, but Gotrek is surrounded. He is down to below half, now about a third. Overcast, Lock of Doom, very nice, but I don't think Gotrek is going to be able to survive what's coming towards him. Uzul is unleashed. Archaon is up to a ridiculous amount of weapon strength now. And yeah, the Slayer is not going to be long for this world. Gooning him up hard, and he will fall with one last strike from the magical sword that Archaon wields. And he was trying to somersault. Didn't really work for him. Smacked in the face, and he's dead. So that's huge. Already, Gotrek is out of the picture, and Demon Spew are munching on the men-at-arms and peasants in the middle of the battlefield. And this is how Chaos needs to play this matchup. Keep the formation high and tight, form a halberd box around Archaon and his pupper, and just keep advancing. Anytime the Questing Knights charge home, have halberds and the linebackers waiting to give them the bad touch. Arrow's whole strategy is to spread the engagement apart, to isolate the Chosen, where they can more easily be picked off with cycle charging and the Hippo flying overhead. But that is the great thing about Chosen halberds. Even when they're on an island unto themselves, they are a brick wall in defense. Cutting through them is no simple task. But Arrow's doing his best job here with a bunch of cycle charging from the companions and from the Questing Knights. Demon Spew are looking like they're about to rout, but they are immune to psych, so they will not terror rout from Albrecht when he lands nearby, and it looks like they might be able to stabilize here. Archaon and the Marauder Horsemasters moving backwards after they counteract the charge from Albrecht de Bordelot, and the Forsaken, oh, they are just destroying this infantry in the center, and watch as those kill counts go way up, just shooting up into the sky. Blisters, fevers, weeping sores from your wounds, the fester pores, and Nurgle's touch is definitely doing a number on the Bretonian infantry. But the archers have had way too much time to fire. Figured it was time to do something about that, and Marauder Horsemasters making their move into the rear and buzzsawing their way through peasant archers, or trying to. They don't have incredible melee stats, which will be made even worse by the poison archers that are firing in, so the engagement isn't going quite as quickly as I would like it to, but still shutting down 4 archers, or trying to, is not going to be bad. And these Chosen halberds are just fighting completely surrounded by an entire squadron, a horde of Questing Knights. The fact that they're still in the fight is insane. And unfortunately, I can't really support them with Archaon or the Shaggoth right now, because that would be throwing them to the wolves too. Kind of have to sack my left flank while I eat up the peasant archers in the rear. Companions coming all the way back. Good move from Arrow. Gonna support them. We'll probably lose 1 Horsemaster unit, but to shut down 4 archers, definitely worth it. And definitely winning in the center. We got everyone beaten up on the Beast Slayers of Bastogne. I need them gone because I'm trying to free up the Chosen halberds. Once they're free, we can then get my entire army back together and present that united front. They'll make it much more difficult for Questing Knights to do what they want to do. So didn't kill off all the peasant archers, but killed a bunch of them. There are a few still firing in, and the Companions of Cornell now have the back line completely cleared up, but I didn't fully lose either of my Horsemaster units either, so wasn't too bad there. More cycle charging coming in. Archaon and the Shaggoth are waiting this time though, and might be able to get an attack or 2 off. Flaming Sword of Ruin has been dodged very well by Arrow. Anytime I try to cast it, he just says, you know what, I'm gone, peace out, and he just retreats. And so I haven't gotten as much value out of that spell, and this might have been a good time for Burning Head. Now I do have Piercing Bolts of Burning. If I can land a great cast of that, I could just completely eviscerate an entire unit of Cav, and that could outright win me the game. But landing that against a player of Arrow's caliber is not easy. Gotta wait for the perfect moment to drop it from the heavens. We've got a bit of a lull in the fighting now, too. But I have some Marauder Horsemasters yeet some javelins into the back of the Companions of Cornell. And drop one of them. One model dropped to those javelin strikes. We'll keep them back, though, because the peasant archers can turn around and shoot them up pretty bad. And finally, my army is back together again. This is how Chaos needs to take this fight. This is how I'm going to win. If I'm going to win, is by keeping my halberds high and tight, compact, around my Shaggoth, around Archaon. So, unfortunately, there is a little bit of ammunition left in those peasant archers, and I don't really have a great way to force the engagement. other than tear routing whatever infantry is nearby. That got pretty nasty. The Crimson Storm coming in when the Shaggoth drops the axe, dropping the hammer on the heads, and Demon Spew coming in doing some good damage too. But I can't really afford to chase too much. Questing Knights are waiting right there. As soon as anything gets isolated, they are going to pounce. So at this point, I said, okay, you don't have a lot of ammo left. I can't really force you to engage yet. Let's just sit here. One thing we need to avoid is overextending, and it's very easy to overextend when you're chasing after Questing Knights and the high-value threats that are still on the field for Bretonnia. So make sure we just sit here, get ready for the charge that we know is coming. We'll take some volleys. Yeah, it sucks, but they don't have a ton of AP, so Chosen Halberd should be fine even after a couple more volleys. 120 armor, keep them survivable in the face of this withering skirmish fire. As long as we keep the Marauder Horsemasters and the Shaggoth out of harm's way. And honestly, I want him to shoot my Shaggoth. It has scaly skin. It has a hitbox that can be pretty janky and hard to shoot when you're moving back and forth. Needed to keep the Shaggoth and Archaon a little bit closer, but we will be able to countercharge. Flaming Sword of Ruin goes down, and again, Arrow is going to pull away, relying on the mass and the impact damage rather than allowing them to sit around and get more melee attack out of their charge. That's smart though. You don't really want to be staying in the pocket when Archaon and the Shaggoth are nearby. Now, the Chosen overextended there. That is the problem we were trying to avoid. Definitely a micro mistake. And on my left flank, that's opening up the opportunity for Arrow to just come in and drop everything. Overcast Flock of Doom. Another title call coming in from the Braid of Bordello, from the Trident of Banan rather, and the Piercing Bolts of Burning raining down from the warp, doing some decent damage, but Arrow dodged the meat of that spell, and this is where Burning Head would have been better, because the cooldown, or rather the duration of that spell, is much less. It's much harder to dodge, and Questing Knights only have 80 armor, so it can actually deal a decent amount of damage. I missed my Piercing Bolts of Burning for the most part, didn't do as much as I wanted it to, and that's opened up the opportunity for Arrow to pounce, and now Archaon is isolated, surrounded, Transformation of Kadon, Albrecht they board low on his hippo. It's all too much, and Diedrich Kastner will fall, surrounded by a horde of poopy peasants and some of the best knights Bretonnia has to offer. So I think Burning Head would have been a really good spell here. I wanted to try out Piercing Bolts because I wanted to see if I could maybe pin a single entity or a full cav unit in place, and you've seen it before. If you land a full spell from Piercing Bolts of Burning, it will completely demolish enemy cavalry units. If the companions had stuck in that fight, they would have gone down to like 0 HP, which is obviously incredible. They do have some flame resist, but I don't think it really matters too much. It has such a high AP component. I don't think it'd be much of a problem for that spell to kill them off at all. Definitely had some micro mistakes that game though, no question about it. I think Archaon and the Shaggoth were used okay, but there were a few times where they were a little bit slow on the uptake or not quite in the right position to counteract the charge of the Questing Knights or Albrecht. And I think the bigger issue I had that game was trying to keep my Chosen Halberds really compact. There were a couple times where I let them get a little bit isolated, and as you saw, that is when Bretonnia can really just jump on that opportunity, get that full surround off, and use the AP from their Questing Knights, from their massive two-handed bastard swords, to just slice through them. And the Halberds performed admirably. They were fantastic that game. 160 kills, 60, 50, and a lot of that was on high-value cav, on companions, on Questing Knights, and doing a little bit of damage to Albrecht too. So they were great, but I didn't necessarily put them in the best position to have them carry the day for me. And I think I sealed my own fate when I overextended on my left flank right before that final engagement. Let them get rear charged as I tried to correct the mistake, and then it was a quick decapitating strike from there. Still had a decent shot at that game near the end, but Arrow showed the power of Questing Knights and deserved the win for sure. Hope you guys enjoyed.